How do you know if you're ready to start Psych NP school? Hey, what's up guys? It's me, the Psych NP David C. Psych NP school isn't something you want to rush into, but it's not something you want to wait on forever either. So how do you know when you're ready? In this video, I'm going to go over some things that I feel are good indicators of whether or not you're ready to start Psych NP school or not. Let's talk about it. And starting with the first thing, psych meds are becoming familiar to you. Now, I'm not saying you need to be like an expert on every psych medication, but if you know what like Lexapro is, or what Seroquel is, or even what Xanax is, and what they're used for, that's a pretty good indication that you're probably ready to start Psych NP school. Like if you see the name escitalopram or Lexapro and your brain immediately goes, oh, that's an antidepressant. Or you see the words quetiapine or Seroquel and you're like, oh, that's an antipsychotic. You're most likely ready to start school. You don't really have to know the specific differences between each medication in every class. Like if you don't know the differences between Lexapro and Zoloft, that's not a big deal because they teach you that in school. And same thing goes for if like you don't know the difference between Seroquel and Zyprexa. But pretty much as long as you know what drug class they're in and what they're used for, that's pretty good already. And it's a bonus if you know a lot of the common side effects as well. Now, on the other hand, if you see something like Wellbutrin or Klonopin and you have like no idea what they are, you're probably not ready to start school just yet, because those are really common psych meds that are used in a lot of patients. So you should probably have at least heard of those medications before you start considering NP school. So as long as you can at least know the names and recognize what they're used for, then you're probably good to go. But if you're still having to look up like what this medication is and what it does, then you probably need some more time. And moving on to the second sign, your psych RN job feels like autopilot. Now, when I say autopilot, I don't mean like you're just super bored or like super detached from your job, because you definitely want to enjoy your psych RN job if you're going to become a psych NP. When I say autopilot, it means more like you're not having constant mental overload. Like you already know like most of what to do if a certain situation arises. Like let's say one of your patients just starts acting up and being like aggressive or hostile. You already know what to do and how to de-escalate. You know how to start with the least restrictive means and start going to more restrictive means depending on what the patient does. When you're doing your assessments on your patients, you pretty much already know what to ask them without having to look things up. Honestly, if you're asking your patient every single thing that's required for your documentation, that's a red flag. For example, if you have a really paranoid patient who thinks like everyone else is coming after them, and then you get to the delusion part of your assessment, if you ask them, hey, do you have any delusions? You're not ready. Because you can already tell by what they're doing and what they're saying that they have delusions and paranoia. And then just basically, you're not like freaking out every day that you go to work. You don't have like super heightened anxiety before your shift starts. It's normal to have like some anxiety, but if you're like freaking out every day, then yeah, you ain't ready. In other words, you can think ahead, like, you know, if this happens, then you just do this and that's it. Obviously, there's going to be random events that happen out of nowhere, but for the most part, you should be already like prepared with what you're going to do in case something happens. And next up, you're curious about decisions and not just carrying out orders. Like for example, let's just say you have a patient who has recently started on lithium, but then like 2 days later, the psychiatrist decides to discontinue it. If you find yourself thinking like, I wonder why the psychiatrist discontinued it. It's only been 2 days. What could be going on with this patient? That's a pretty good sign that you're ready to start Psych NP school. Honestly, I've met a lot of nurses who just like don't think of the rationales behind orders and they'll just carry them out just because like that's what the order says. So for example, let's just say we have a new patient who's elderly and who has never taken any kind of psych medications before, and you see a psychiatrist put in the order for Zyprexa 25 milligrams. You should question the heck out of that order because that Zyprexa dose is probably gonna like kill him. You shouldn't be thinking like, oh, well, the order says 25 milligrams, so I'm just gonna give 25 milligrams. You should be thinking like, okay, 25 milligrams is a hell of a lot for Zyprexa. Maybe they meant like 2.5 and they forgot to put the period. But anyway, I'm gonna call the psychiatrist to clarify the order. But yeah, if you find yourself actually trying to find the reasoning behind orders instead of just blindly carrying them out, that's a good sign that you're ready to start Psych NP school. And this doesn't apply to just med orders. You could be curious about like diagnoses too. Like in your downtime, if you find yourself looking at the psychiatrist's notes and like their diagnoses on a patient and wondering why the psychiatrist chose that diagnosis, you're probably ready to start school. But if you don't care about the diagnosis, you don't care about the meds that they're on and what dosages and all that, then you're probably not ready for school. And then moving on to the next one, you have strong emotional regulation. A lot of people think Psych NP work is less emotionally draining than Psych RN work, but I actually find it to be the opposite. Like, yeah, generally as a Psych RN, you're gonna encounter more like acute patients, since generally most Psych RNs work in inpatient hospitals. So you're gonna have patients like cussing you out and like threatening to beat you up and stuff. But the good thing about that is that you can just leave work at work. Like as a Psych RN, once you clock out, like that patient is not your responsibility anymore. But as a Psych NP, a lot of them work outpatient, which means you're going to be caring for the same patients over a long period of time. So like even when you get home, you're probably still going to be thinking about like, you know, how you can treat that patient better, what you're going to do next regarding their medications. It's a lot harder to leave work at work. But if you have a lot of experience as a Psych RN, like just dealing with all the acute patients, the ones who are literally like yell at you and call you names, and you're able to like leave work at work and not take it personally, then that's a pretty good sign that you're ready to become a Psych NP. But if you take things that patients do or say to you personally and you like can't get over it when you get home, that's a bad sign. You're definitely gonna build thicker skin the more experience you get as a Psych RN. So I would make sure your skin is thick enough before you decide to start Psych NP school. And last but not least, you're comfortable being the one who makes decisions. If you're someone who doesn't like taking charge or who doesn't like making decisions, then Psych NP is probably not for you. As a Psych NP, you're the one who's prescribing, you're the one who's diagnosing, you're the one who's deciding which labs you want to order. You basically decide everything that goes on with your patient. It's definitely a lot of pressure, and you have to be ready to handle that pressure, because eventually you're going to be caring for like 20, 30, 50, or even 100 patients, and you're making decisions for all of those patients. And a lot of the time you have to make those decisions pretty quickly too. Like if you're seeing a patient as an NP, you can't just be like, oh, wow, actually give me a second, let me think about this overnight and then I'll get back to you. You have to think of what you're going to do for that patient, like while you're at that appointment with them. So you have to be a quick thinker and you have to be comfortable with deciding what you want to do. If you're someone who would rather just like kind of sit back and be like in second place and just carry out what other people tell you to do, then Psych NP is probably not for you. So pretty much just ask yourself, does responsibility energize you or does it paralyze you? You don't need to have the confidence to make decisions just yet, but you need the willingness to do so once you're in that position. And that wraps it up for my take on how to tell if you're ready for Psych NP school. If you have any questions about it or you have tips for other people, you can leave a comment down below. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. I do videos on like psych stuff and Psych NP stuff. I am also on TikTok and Instagram if you want to follow me over there at Psych NP David C. I do medication management for adults living in California. If you're interested, there's a link down below. And with that, your mental health just leveled up. You're welcome.